What a passage in John 13 that we're in this morning, and looking at Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And I think this moment, there are so much richness and beauty in this passage. But I want to just speak to one, I think, thing that this kind of moment really addresses. And it's this whole thing of us feeling close or not to God. Because I think a lot of Christians feel frustrated that they are not closer to God than they really wish they were. I think a lot of people feel like they desperately inside, they long to be close to God. They want to know His presence. They want to know Him talking to them and walking with them during their everyday life. And yet it always feels like God's kind of just like an arm's length away, and you know He's close theologically and you know the Bible verses, but there is something about the kind of like, I want Him this close. Does that make sense to anyone? And I think just from talking to people that church can often be a weirdly difficult time for some Christians, because you can come to church and you see people seemingly caught up in glorious fellowship with the Holy Spirit. And you can sometimes be there yourself thinking, why don't I feel like that? Anybody? I don't feel as close as those people feel. Why have they got their hands in the air? Why don't I feel like I want to put my hands in the air? And you can get to this feeling of like, I know it's all true, but does that make sense? So some people can actually leave church feeling weirdly disheartened. The one place you should come to the well of life, and people leave church thinking, I didn't quite engage like other people seem to be engaging. And I think it's why people often find Bible reading hard, because you know you're a Christian, right? So you're supposed to read the Bible. You read the Bible and you wonder, why don't I feel God in my life? I'm doing the stuff. I'm ticking the boxes. I'm going through my Bible reading plan and I'm not feeling kind of closeness. And I know from talking to some people who want to have faith, they can sometimes get to this place where they're caught. And they're like in between this place where they want to have faith, and they want to have faith like those kind of people maybe, and yet it feels like there is this internal thing that gets them stuck, and they can never get past this, beyond this invisible point. And it feels like some people just assume, well, it's like a personality thing or a genetic thing, or it's like, you know, like some people can roll their tongues, huh? Can you roll your tongue? And some people can't. It's genetics. It's not practice. I learned that doing a sports science degree, so there you go. You just can or you can't, so you can't practice it. And some people say, well, if you have faith and you feel close to God, it's like a kind of, maybe it's just like that. It's just how you're wired. And some people then just maybe give up. And they come perilously close to Christianity. They try to be a Christian, and eventually what happens is because they feel like they've got to do something, but they can't, they just kind of give up and go back to their... A lot of people wrestle with this. And there are lots of reasons why that might happen. As a Christian, there might be like a complex, multi-layered reasons why you might not feel close to God in any given moment. It might be an over-reliance on your emotions, that you're looking for an emotion, you're not actually looking for God. It might be a specific sin, that you're trying to get close to God and you're continuing to live in this sin, and that's just incongruous in the scriptures. It might be because you are just plain exhausted. Parents, don't beat yourself up if you feel like, where's God in my life? It's just, you're absolutely exhausted. Don't worry about it. Just hold the course and you'll come out of it one day. Any amens? Okay. Sometimes you're just tired. Don't fret too much. Just have a good night's sleep and have a coffee, and the Holy Spirit's there all of a sudden. But there are lots, sometimes just physiologically, there are just things going on. Sometimes the Lord in His sovereignty takes you to places where, for whatever reason, He wants you to learn a new dependence upon a new hunger and a seeking for Him. There are lots of reasons, but I want to speak this morning from this passage what I think is a foundation, that unless we get this foundation, all of these other reasons will never fall into place. There is a reason beneath all of these other complex reasons that unless we have this, we will never find the kind of relationship with God that we actually desire. So what I want to do is just set the scene, just get us into this situation, look at Jesus, and then I want to look at Peter, and then we're going to break bread together. Because I think if we see Peter, we will see ourselves. So the situation, Jesus, Peter, then the Lord's Supper together. So what's going on in this moment? From John 13 to John 18, we basically have 4 days of Jesus' life. So John slows right down in this moment. The public ministry has finished. We go, as it were, behind closed doors, and we find Jesus with his disciples in an upper room in what would have been an absolutely crammed Jerusalem for the Passover festival. Every nook and cranny of Jerusalem would have been filled at this point. And Jesus and his disciples, they find a room where they can take the Passover meal together, and they go and they find themselves, and most probably they would have been at like a U-shaped table together, reclining on their sides. I never know why they recline on their sides, because I've tried that once and it's extremely uncomfortable to try and eat on your side, but that's what they did in those days, and they would eat with their feet spread out. And first century Near Eastern life, they didn't have deodorant, they didn't have showers, and so if you were coming into a home, you wouldn't say, hey, could I take your coat? Could I hang up your coat, or etc.? We ask maybe, is shoes on, shoes off, or that kind of like, what are we doing? We're always confused because everyone's got a different set of rules. And what they would have done at a nice formal meal, they would have had someone there who would have been prepared and ready to wash everyone's feet, because it's dusty, it's sweaty. It's feet, right? No one likes their own feet. The best of time you take your shoes off at the end of the day, even in our nice deodorized showering life. It's like, so imagine 12 men, so you need to be washed. And it was a place where they would be honored and treated. It was like, okay, we're going to make this a special moment. We're going to have your feet washed. But only the lowest servant would have been asked to have washed anyone's feet. The Jewish tradition was that a Jewish servant wouldn't be allowed to wash Jewish people's feet, because it was viewed as it's just too low. So they would have found a Gentile servant to have done this. And if there was no Gentile servant, then either you didn't have your feet washed or everyone would do it themselves. Because it was viewed as, it's dirty, it's smelly, it's intimate, it's vulnerable, it's kind of like... And so here we have this moment, Jesus, the rabbi of the disciples, the one that the disciples hoped would be the political leader of Israel, the one that they were trying to promote amongst their friends as the new Lord who would bring peace to Israel, who would overthrow the Romans, who would come in might. They had grand hopes for this Jesus. And here is Jesus getting up, taking off his outer robe, which he wouldn't have done, putting a towel around his waist, getting on his knees and serving the disciples. And we have it as a nice moment now. Like if sometimes weddings, you've been to a wedding where they symbolically wash each other's feet. Have you ever been to one of those? Or sometimes at ordination services, someone washes someone's feet, and it's kind of, and everyone's like washed their feet ahead of time and everything's nice, right? It's like, it's symbolic, I get it. It's a symbol of like heart attitude. But for them, this was shocking and demeaning and undignified and not what Jesus should be doing. And so Peter, he says this to Jesus, and I think we would have said something similar. He says in verse 6, he came to Simon Peter going around washing their feet. Lord, do you wash my feet? And Jesus answered him, what I am doing you don't understand now, but afterwards you will understand. Because he's bringing a symbol of his death to come on the cross. He's picturing something of what he's going to do on the cross. But Peter said to him, classic old Peter, you shall never wash my feet. You should never tell God that he's never going to do something in your life, right? Because inevitably God's like, all right, I take your tests and I'll come and meet your tests. Oh, I'm never going to go there. I'll never travel there. I'll never go on mission there. Don't say that to God, because he likes those kind of nevers. And Jesus says, if I do not wash your feet, you have no share with me. This is the phrase that just leapt out as I was meditating on this. If I don't wash your feet, you have no share with me. You have no part with me. As it were, you can't relate to me unless I'm going to wash your feet. In Colossians 1, it talks about the inheritance of the saints and Christians having a share that is of Christ. To be a Christian is to have a part of Christ, to know him. And Jesus is saying, unless I do this, unless I get down on my hands and knees and wash your feet, we're not going to know each other. Which is not really the kind of place we would normally go. If someone says, I'm not feeling close to Jesus at the moment, we might say, oh, let's pray for you. Let's pray that you know God close, which is fine to pray. But Jesus doesn't pander to us, and he doesn't treat us like a therapeutic project. We tend to pray stuff like, oh, let's just pray that the thing, we never really deal with the root. Jesus doesn't do that. He's kind of like blunt. He's like, no, unless I wash your feet, like the relationship's not going anywhere. And this, I want to suggest, is the foundation upon which all of the other reasons could be true. Unless we get this right, we are never going to know Jesus like our hearts desire to know Jesus. Unless we are willing to sit and have Jesus at our feet, washing our feet, we're never going to know Christ like we desire to. So let me talk about Jesus for a moment. Because this, we don't expect to see Jesus down low. We don't expect to see God. Where do we expect to see God? Talk to anyone, atheist, secular, agnostic, where would God be? He's up there, right? He's somewhere in the heavens. Where's God? He's somewhere up there. I don't know. I can't see him today, but he's up there somewhere. And we know that. Good Christian theology, the Lord is high and lifted up. And yet we know something about God, that he didn't just stay high and lifted up. The Lord decided to step off his throne and come down into humanity, and not just come close by his spirit. Allah, we're told, is depicted as coming close and being near to us. But only Yahweh steps off the throne of heaven and enters into the fullness of humanity by embracing flesh, being born of a woman and coming so low, he embraced servanthood as a man amongst us. He didn't just come as a man as a king, he came as a man as a servant. He came down. Sometimes we can miss God because we're looking too high. We think he's high and exalted. He's above the stuff of the world. He's spiritual. He doesn't get involved in the mundane and the boring and the... Have you ever wondered, and I don't know if you're a Christian, you might have, like the moment when you meet Jesus, what that's going to be like? Anyone ever wondered that moment? Where, like, what's it going to be like? Because we know that Christ was resurrected in his body. He is still a Near Eastern man by the right hand of God the Father. One day we're going to meet him. What's that going to be like, right? It's not going to be a mystical spiritual experience. It's going to be more real than me embracing John this morning. What's it going to be like? Imagine this. Imagine if you got to heaven and you're there and you see Jesus on his throne, and we're told that there are like 12 elders on one side, 12 elders on another. There are seraphim, these fiery angel creatures just hovering over his head, crying out, holy, 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 one to another, day and night, all day long. And there's Christ, and you want to go and meet him. And so you walk up to the throne, and we're told in Revelation that we go share his throne. So Christ, he steps off his throne to come and meet you, and you can't wait, and you get closer to Jesus in heaven. And imagine at the point when you go to embrace Jesus, that he is actually shorter than you are. Ever thought about that? I like to think about it. I'm not trying to be irreverent, I'm trying to be real. Because he was resurrected in the flesh. Historically, I think people were shorter in those days. Imagine if you had to embrace Jesus when you met him as he came off the throne, and you had to look down to... Feels weird, right? We're so used to thinking of Jesus up. He's up there somewhere. You know, like Marcio. Have you ever hugged Marcio? If you hug Marcio, you get lost in his armpits somewhere. You know, you're like, you end up just like embracing his waist. So it's just really awkward. But celebrities, you know, if you've ever met a celebrity, they're always weirdly shorter than you imagine. I bumped into Michael McIntyre the other day. I say bumped into. We walked past each other. But it's like, wow, he's really short. Because you imagine them, because you just see them on screens and you imagine, or it seems to make people bigger and bigger and bigger. And yet Jesus, he came as a man, as a servant, low amongst us. There was nothing, he wasn't like, if I'm going to be born, Father, I want to be 1 foot above the rest, broad shoulders, golden flowing hair. I want to, that's what I would be asking for. But Jesus, he comes as a servant. He comes low. We wouldn't have been able to distinguish him. And when he dies, he comes low. It's funny when you see Christian art sometimes. Christian art is good. It also can be not very helpful sometimes. Like if I ask you, imagine the cross, how do artists picture the cross normally? Normally it's on the top of a very high hill, yeah? And then the crosses are very distant, and there's kind of a golden glow behind them or something like that. And so it's always trying to take your head up, like it's up there, I see. And it kind of has this sense of like, I want to reach for the cross. I want to go up there. And even so, if you see 3 crosses, what happens to the middle cross? There's 2 crosses that are like here, and then there's 1 cross that's up there. I find that so frustrating. Because it's like it's almost like our hearts can't bear that God, in all of his glory and splendor and holiness, would actually come down so low to be crucified with our hearts can't bear it. It's us through art, almost with Peter saying, no, I don't want you to come that low. I want you to keep some dignity. I want you to be high and elevated like the other gods, like be separate from us. But Christ came so low that if you would have seen those 3 crosses when Jesus was being crucified, you say, which one is the Messiah dying for the sins of the world? You couldn't have called them out. 3 men whipped, tortured, dying. I don't know, but one of those is dying for the sins of the world right now. He came so low that he was to serve us. And if we're going to have a part with Christ, we are going to have to see and accept that Christ came down so low that we have to look down to receive him. It's uncomfortable, right? It's strange. But Christ says, unless I'm going to come down and kneel at your feet, this relationship's not going anywhere. And then we find out that he washes our feet. I mean, the whole thing is, like, Peter found it shocking. I would imagine the disciples, as Jesus was going around, I mean, Jesus, maybe there was a servant there and he said, I want to do something now. Maybe there was no one there. The disciples were not organized enough. It does happen sometimes in church. No one thought to organize who's going to wash our feet. This is a special meal. And so Jesus, the situation would have been tense and awkward as Jesus just goes one by one by one. We don't know at what point he got to Peter's feet. And he refuses to be washed. He says, this is not going to happen. But here is Jesus willingly. It wasn't put on him, willingly washing the disciples' feet. Have you ever been in a situation where you have done something that you feel is maybe beneath your station? Anybody? Like, you don't want to admit it, right? But you kind of feel like, I don't really want to be doing this kind of job. Like, it doesn't feel comfortable to me because I want to view myself like this. Or if anyone at work, like your boss asks you, could you do this job for me? And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not paid to do that. I'm paid to do this. That's what the junior does. Anyone? You're like, this is not, and it kind of tweaks something in here. You're like, it sits very uncomfortably. You're viewing me like, okay, I thought after I became a Baptist minister in a previous life many years ago, I joined Hope Church in South London at Bromley. And it was great. One of the first jobs I took was as the cleaner of the buildings. We had a big building back in the day. And I remember, having become an august, accredited Baptist minister, I went to Hope Church and I was looking for any jobs. There were no jobs at the time, so I was literally on a Tesco's kind of job list waiting for something to pop up. I didn't know what I was going to do, but we had to eat. And my first staff meeting, what happened was the cleaner at the time had just had to step out because of health reasons. And so I was like, I need a job. This is fine. I'll do a job. And it was all fine until I actually started doing the job. It's like, I was like, okay, a day's work, that's fine. I just need 2 more. I think I needed 2 more days' work, and then we're going to be okay. So, because I remember at the time, some things were fine. Hoovering the floor was okay. Washing the windows was okay. I'm not saying I was a good cleaner, but I did do the cleaning. But then I had to do the toilets as well. And so, a busy church, 200 people or so. I mean, sometimes people miss. What can I say? And so there are lots of kids around. So it's just like this stuff. So I was there one Sunday night. And remember, I'd been a Baptist minister at this point, okay? Like a proper pastor with a denomination, like the real deal. And then one Sunday night, I was there cleaning the toilets. And what was happening, I didn't know, the elders of the church were meeting at the same time. And so I saw a few of the elders coming in. They were going into a room. And then they started to pray and sing or something like that. And I was like, darn it. I don't want to be here. Why am I, the ordained Baptist minister, on my hands and feet, washing the basin of a toilet while the elders are over there praying? And do you know what I was like? In my heart, I was like, I should be over there praying for the church. And here I am cleaning the toilets. And I was jealous. I was like, I don't want to be. The reason I tell you that story is because I wrestled with the situation. I knew God was doing good stuff, but I had to get my head into thinking, like, no. Like, I had to remind myself, like, you follow a Lord who died on a cross. So what is a toilet? That's nothing. But it was a wrestle. When Christ gets down from the seat and he washes the disciples' feet, this is not difficult for him. This is his very nature to wash dirty feet. There was no wrestle. There was no only disciples. If you'd organized this, I wouldn't be here. Oh, if in your pride you'd actually, someone would be doing this, I wouldn't have to do this. This is a true extension of the very nature of who Jesus is. This is what he is glad to do. This is what we're told in the passage in verse 3. We're told Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand and that he had come from God and was going back to God. Full stop for a moment. If that were you or if that were me, what would you say? Oh, by the way, I know who I am. I know I'm the eternal Son of God. I know I've come from him, and very shortly I'm going to him. In fact, I'm going to die on the cross for you. So actually, probably this is a moment for a little me time. If you could serve my food, because I'm going to die for you on the cross tomorrow. That's how I would be thinking. But Christ, knowing exactly who he is, follows through on his nature. And so when he sees a need, however dirty and demeaning it is, he steps down, and as an overflow of who he is, he serves the disciples. And if in eternity past it is to serve his Father, he will serve his Father. And if in eternity present it is to meet the need of sin and dirt, he is glad that the very nature of Christ, when he sees sin, moves towards it to wash us away in our sin, or wash our sin away. This is Jesus' nature. And we need to accept Christ's lowliness and his service if we're going to go deep with Christ and have a part with him. Here's the thing. You and me are like Peter. We don't like it. It's uncomfortable to be served. For a few reasons, I think. I think we find it uncomfortable because it kind of hurts our pride a little bit. Because to be served by someone else is basically to recognize, I need help, and I would like you to help. It's accepting vulnerability and weakness, and our pride wants to be those, especially in London, who are the self-sufficient ones, right? This last week I was at a conference, and for some reason, because I'm now dairy-free, I've got a thing at last, I'm dairy-free, hallelujah. I had to have a special lunch. And for whatever reason, my special lunch hadn't been made. I was like, no big deal. I've over-snacked in the break anyway. I can probably do another 2 hours till the next break. So I was like, no bother, no fuss. I don't, I'm English as well, so I don't want to fuss being bothered about it. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I could be starving, but no, I'm fine, I'm full, really, don't worry. But this whole team jumped. So like, excellent service, like amazing. So the boss of the whole thing got the lady who was going to organize the lunch, and then she got a colleague to come to go across to Sainsbury's, and they had to find out all the details of what kind of lunch, and then they were on the phone backwards and forwards, and I found the whole thing thoroughly uncomfortable, because I was sat there, I could go to Sainsbury's and walk, but I was, I was with a friend sat there, and they were making these phone calls. Hey, would like chicken, something nearby. I was like, I don't care, anything you want. Why? Because it's a humbling thing to be sat and have other people run around and serve you, right? It feels weird. It's why so many of us, when someone comes down to our house and say, anything we can do to help, we instinctively what do we do? In England anyway, I don't know, no, you sit there. I serve you. You don't serve me. No, that's how we feel. It feels uncomfortable for you to serve in my home, because we want to be the ones who give, because it keeps us in a position of we have our... But Christ is saying there is a pride that we need to get through, that we must be willing to be sat in a position of humility and just simply receive from him. The second thing I think is this is very vulnerable. Right? To take off, some people or Brazilians are in their sandals already, that's fine. I don't like taking off my socks because I don't like my feet. I'm not sure many people like their feet, but if I said to John right now, John, if it's okay, I'd like to take your socks and your shoes off, and I'd like, no, please don't. This is a theoretical church meeting illustration. Maybe John's happy with it. But if someone asked me to do that, I would be like, I would rather you didn't touch my feet if that was okay. I wouldn't really ask Toria to touch my feet and what, so I don't want to let I'll sort my own feet out, right? This is my zone. I will clean my own feet. I'll sort my own feet. It's vulnerable. And what Jesus is saying is, if you want a relationship with me, if we're going to go close, if we're going to become deep, you need to allow me to touch the vulnerable parts of your life. The unpresentable parts, as it were. The parts of your life that you don't bring on a Sunday and you keep in a cupboard way in your distant past. I don't want those to be touched. If you have that kind of attitude, you're always going to struggle to feel some intimacy with Jesus, because he doesn't come for the ones who are well, he comes for those who are sick. He doesn't come for the bits of you that are sorted, he comes for the bits of you that are broken and dirty and vulnerable, the bits that you feel like you have to take a breath before you unveil them to Jesus and say, okay, you can touch the dirt of my feet, the sin, the things that we've done that we regret, even feel ashamed about. We live in a society where self-care is it's multi-trillion pound industry, right? We look after ourselves, don't we? We're all into our optimization and morning routines and health hacking, and we look after ourselves. We are so into our rest and what we need. I think sometimes if we put a 17th century Christian against the 21st century, you guys are really into yourself, aren't you? It's yeah, we talk about us a lot. What I need right now is this. Oh, I don't do that. Oh, I need this. But it's this kind of air that we're breathing that says, basically, I look after myself. And what happens when it gets into the church and it gets into our mindset, what happens is we say, I sort out myself, and then I give myself to Jesus when I'm okay. And it manifests itself in things like, when I'm feeling good, I'm in the Bible. When I'm feeling good, I'm at church. When I'm not feeling good and when I'm feeling overwhelmed, the Bible feels very distant. When I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm not feeling great, I don't really want to go to church. Which is basically doing a Peter. And saying, once I've sorted myself out and washed myself, then I will come back to you. But in the meantime, while I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I want to keep you over there. And we wonder why Jesus isn't close to us. Because in the very moments where we have our vulnerability, we have our sin, we have our overwhelm, the very things that Jesus came to serve, we say, no, just stay over there while I get myself sorted. It's this spiritual self-salvation that we try and do, even as Christians. And what Christ is saying here is, unless I wash your feet, unless I come to that part of you, in the darkest place of your overwhelm, unless you stop trying to sort it out yourself, you will never know me. It's what religion says, right? That we got to do stuff for God. You know that Bible verse from, I think it's 2 Timothy or something like that, says God helps those who help themselves. Do you know that Bible verse? Yeah, you don't know it because it's not a Bible verse. But it sounds like pretty close. Like if I was toying with Toria, I think one day I just want to quote that really fast in a sermon and just see how many people are like, yeah, right. God helps those who help themselves. Because it kind of sounds right? It's like, but that's religion. It's this idea that you help yourself out and God says, I see your sincerity. I see that you're trying hard, so let me come and help you. But this is a passage that is telling us to stop trying to sort your life out. This is the posture of this. And in a moment, we're going to break bread together. And we're going to break bread sat down. Because when you sit down, you can't do anything, right? You're stuck. Can you go get your salvation? If you're asking me to sit, I can't. Could you go get your forgiveness from the cross? It's up there high on that hill. If Christ is saying, would you sit and let me wash your feet? I can't. So what can you do? Nothing. You can't do anything. That's why Jesus says, unless I wash your feet, unless you stay there and I do something for you, this relationship's not going to go anywhere. And a lot of us, we need to learn to stop trying to give things to God. The best parts of us trying to redeem ourselves and give him some leadership or personality or sincerity or prayer life, trying to give him this kind of new rhythm that we've got for this new season. Some of us, we need just to stop and learn the gospel that says Jesus is down low washing my feet. All I can do is receive from him. And so when we break bread, what we're going to do is we're going to take from the table, and Emmanuel is going to lead us in just a moment, and we're going to come back to our seats, and we're going to sit, and we're going to spiritually look low while Christ washes us in our most vulnerable and proud places. Amen?